Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of PowerShell Bytes. Today's episode is part 3 in a multi-part series on managing users on macOS with PowerShell. In the last two episodes, episode 15 and 16, we built commandlets or technically advanced functions to create new user accounts as well as retrieving existing user accounts and their various user properties. In this episode, we'll be building two different advanced functions that deals with removing user accounts. Now, before I jump into the code, I just want to say real quick, if you guys like these videos, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you don't like it, go ahead and give it a thumbs down. And if there's anything in these videos that I could do to improve it or something that you think I could do differently, please give a comment. I read all of them and I'll do my best to respond and make adjustments to these shows in future shows. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the show. We're going to be building two different functions, and the first one will be just removing the user account, and the second one will be removing the user home folder, or kind of in the Windows world, a lot of times it's referred to as the user profile. So I'm here in Visual Studio Code again. If I use the snippet here, start typing commandlet, it'll give me the structure for an advanced function. We'll use the Remove-LocalUser. That's what we'll call it. And we'll start out with just one parameter, and then I'll add to this in a little bit. I realized on the last few videos that I kind of built the functions out of order as far as how I normally would build them. I kind of started building them in a sequential order rather than the way that I normally would go about creating them. So I'm doing a slightly different on this episode, and we'll be going back and adding parameters and some stuff to fill in some extra stuff that we want. We'll go ahead and go right to this process block, and we'll loop through everything in that name parameter because it accepts multiple values. And there's really only one command that we need to run. We'll use the DSCL command, use the delete parameter, or actually I believe they call it the command in the man file, but in PowerShell world that would be considered a parameter. And that's simple. We're basically looping through all the names that were passed through and running this native DSCL command to delete the user. However, I would like to add some kind of safety checks here, and I want to add a couple things. For one, if someone just runs this commandlet or this advanced function without anything else, I want it to warn them, hey, you're about to remove this user account or these user accounts if they don't run it without the force parameter. And I also want to add in the what if and confirm parameters, so someone could go through, maybe accept a bunch of pipeline input into this command and then type what if to just see what would happen if they ran it, but it doesn't actually run the command. So we'll go ahead and do that here. So if I type in the commandlet binding here, or fill in right between these, if I type in should support process or support should process, make that equal to true. That'll add the what if and the confirm part of this. And right now you'll see it's barking at me here. It's because I have to implement a second part to that. So if I go over here, I'm going to type an if statement, and we're going to check a variable called PS commandlet, and there's a should process function. And if I actually click here, I want to show you there's basically different ways to use that function. Let me see if I can get that to pop back up. And we'll be using the second one, which accepts two strings. The first one's a target and the second one's an action. And I'll just show you that. There's different ways you can use this. Just want to point that out. So the first one, we'll go ahead and pass a host name. We'll use the host name. In Windows, I'd use the environment variable computer name. But testing around here, currently there is no environment computer name. So I'm just basically using parentheses to execute the native host name command to basically pull back a string. And then the second part, we'll just say remove local user. I'll type accounts, and name. So I'll run this and you'll see what this shows, what it actually says. It'll basically say, hey, it's going to remove, it's running the remove local user, and it'll remove these accounts, whatever was passed in the name parameter. So we'll need the opening and closing braces for here, and we'll go ahead and put that for each loop inside that. Do some indentation here. Okay, that looks good. So now this is wrapped. Now the what if and confirm commandlet will work. And I also want to add here is I want to make the default confirm impact. I don't know what that was here. Okay, I want to make the default confirm impact high. And again, that's basically if someone just runs this command without using the force parameter, which I'm about to implement, it would prompt them and basically say, are you sure you want to remove these accounts? So go ahead and add a force parameter, because if someone knows what they want to do and they don't want to be bothered with that, or they're making some sort of script that implements this, you're going to want to be able to basically bypass that. So we'll make a switch here, and we'll make that force. And I don't want all this extra stuff, so I'll remove that. It's unneeded. Now I'll get rid of the in script block because I won't be using that, but I will be using the begin script block. And it's pretty simple. So basically it's if they use the force, we're going to say the confirm impact will equal none. And so basically what this does is when this command is ran, this begin block runs once. And this is important when you accept pipeline input. I'm not going to get into the details of that in this video, but essentially this will just be ran once. And if the force parameter is used, it'll change the confirm impact for the scope of this advanced function to none. And that will basically not prompt them for basically all the accounts that are getting removed. So if they use the force switch, they won't be bothered. So the only thing left is I would like to accept pipeline input for the name parameter. So we'll go ahead and use the parameter, and we'll say for one mandatory, we'll make this equal to true, so this is a mandatory parameter. And then we'll say accept value from pipeline equals true, and the value from pipeline by property name, make that equal to true as well. Now this will accept pipeline in those two forms. It's also a mandatory parameter, and we're about ready to test, but we'll go ahead and build out the other commandlet as well, or technically advanced function. So I'll minimize this and we create the next one. So rather than actually building a complete function over again, the code is almost identical. So I'm going to cheat here and go ahead and copy the last function and paste it in and change what we need to. So I'll call this the Remove-LocalUserProfile. And you could also call it probably more accurately the Remove-LocalUser home folder. But since I come from the Windows world, a lot of times we call it the user profile. Again, you could add an alias or whatever to make that work. Now I actually forgot something here in the last command, so let me fix that in this one, and I'll need to fix that as well over here. Okay, back to the command. So the only part we're actually changing here is the command. Instead of running a DSCL command, we'll use the native remove item because we're actually removing just a home folder. So we'll just type in remove item, and we'll just say path is the path is the users slash, just pass in that current name and the name parameter. We'll go ahead and say force and we'll recurse because we want to remove everything in that home folder. Now there technically could be maybe a problem with this because technically a user account could probably have a home folder that's named differently. I believe that would be highly unusual, so for my purposes I think this works fine. But if you have a better way, please go ahead, if you can think of a better way, go ahead and leave a comment below. But for this example, I think this works just fine. And that's it. So the next part of this is testing this out. So we're over here in the terminal, and before we jump into PowerShell, we'll just want to do a sudo PowerShell, or you could also type in sudo-I and elevate your entire terminal, but we just need to do it for the PowerShell. Type your credentials in, and then we'll go ahead and import the module that we just saved. Import module. Use the force parameter. And I already have a couple accounts created here. We'll go ahead and take a look at them right now. These last two here, last few, there's test1 and test2 accounts, and they have their home directories. We'll just verify that those home directories exist. And you'll see there's 3 home directories in my current user and test1 and test2 account. So we'll go ahead and test these out. So type in remove-LocalUser. At past names here, we'll say test1, test2, and we're actually not going to use the force, we're actually going to use what if. And you'll see here it says, hey, performing operation, remove local user accounts, test1 and test2 on target, and this is my local host here. So again, if I type in, if I don't do anything here, it'll actually want me to confirm the deletion of these accounts. So right now I'm going to just say L, which is no to all, because I don't want to do this. What I will do is use the force parameter, and you'll see that it basically won't ask me at all. So I'll run this, and I must have messed something up here, because this should not be prompting me. So actually, after looking around here for a little bit, I couldn't figure out what was going on here, and I actually used the wrong variable here. So it should be confirm preference should equal none, not confirm impact. So that was my mistake, and I'll actually have to make this change in both of the functions that I created. And this should fix it. Now if we jump back over to the terminal, I'll go ahead and re-import that module, and if I run the remove user again, use the force parameter, this should work. And sure enough, it should have removed it. There was no prompts here. And if I type in get local user again, and you'll see the accounts no longer exist. But if I do a ls for the users folder, the home folder still exists. That's because we basically split this in 2 different functions so we can control exactly what we're removing. So if I use the Remove-LocalUserProfile and do the same thing, we'll pass in both those names. And if I don't do anything here, it should ask me to confirm. I'm going to go basically L, no to all. And if I type in the what if command, it should say basically do the same thing as before. It basically tells you what it would have done if you ran it. So I'm going to clear screen here, and we'll go ahead and use the force parameter, and that should remove those folders. And if we do ls users again, sure enough, it just shows my basically currently logged on user as the only home folder. So that's pretty much it. We created a couple functions here to remove local users and local user home folders on a Mac using PowerShell. So we just built 2 advanced functions that deals with removing user accounts. The first part would actually remove the user account, and the second function dealt with removing the user's home folder, or if you come from the Windows world, a lot of times it's referred to as the user's profile. Now, if you stick around, in the next episode, we'll be building another advanced function that deals with setting the user accounts. So if you already have existing users, you can use this function to set various user properties, passwords, reset their password, things like that. So again, thank you for watching. And if you guys have any comments whatsoever, please go ahead and leave a comment below. I read them and I'll do my best to respond to them. Thank you for watching.